The cabin hums with the familiar symphony of jet engines as British Airways Flight 9 ascends into the night sky over Kuala Lumpur. The 747, named City of Edinburgh, carries 248 souls bound for Perth, Australia. Inside the cockpit, Captain Eric Moody and his crew perform routine checks. The takeoff is smooth, the skies are clear, and the passengers settle into the long-haul flight. Little do they know, a terrifying ordeal awaits them high above the Indian Ocean. As the aircraft gains altitude, the passengers enjoy their meals, some dozing off in their seats, while others chat softly under the dim cabin lights. The flight attendants move about, offering refreshments, ensuring seatbelts are fastened. In the cockpit, the crew maintains a calm, professional demeanor, running through their standard protocols. The engines purr steadily, a comforting sound that signifies a routine journey. The captain gazes out the windshield, admiring the serene moonlit sky. He checks the instrument panel, confirming all readings are nominal. There is no indication of any trouble ahead. The only anomaly, if it can be called that, is the eeriness of how still everything seems. The stars shine unnaturally bright, casting an ethereal glow on the horizon. But for the crew and passengers, there is no reason for alarm. Yet, at 37,000 feet, the aircraft cruises through what appears to be a calm, cloudless night. But what the crew cannot see is an enormous plume of volcanic ash, an invisible hazard spewed into the sky by Indonesia's Mount Galunggung. Unlike storm clouds, volcanic ash doesn't show up on radar. The fine glass-like particles begin to swirl into the engines, undetected, setting the stage for disaster. Back in the cabin, an elderly woman shifts in her seat, her arthritic fingers gripping the armrest as turbulence gently nudges the plane. A young couple exchanges smiles, oblivious to the silent danger looming outside. The flight attendants continue their service, reassuring passengers who are feeling the mild turbulence. In the cockpit, the crew notices a faint shimmering effect. Outside, like an otherworldly glow outlining the aircraft. St. Elmo's fire, the co-pilot remarks, thinking nothing of it. But deep within the engines, the volcanic ash is beginning its insidious work. The tiny glass particles are melting at the high temperatures inside the turbines, forming a layer of molten rock that will soon lead to an unprecedented catastrophe. The crew remains unaware, their radar screens showing nothing but a smooth flight path ahead. A faint flickering of St. Elmo's fire dances along the cockpit windows, a ghostly blue glow that hints at electrical discharge. Suddenly, the cabin fills with an acrid smell like burning sulfur. Passengers cough, glancing around in confusion. In the cockpit, the crew sees a haze forming in the cabin. Flight engineer Barry Townley Freeman checks the systems, but everything seems normal until the engines start to cough and sputter. Passengers notice a thin layer of smoke drifting through the cabin, causing murmurs of concern. A mother clutches her child tightly as she looks around for a flight attendant. The crew, now on high alert, begins checking the engine indicators. Captain Moody instructs his first officer to investigate, and a tense silence falls over the cockpit as they scan for possible malfunctions. Then, without warning, the aircraft shudders violently. Overhead, bins rattle and drinks spill from trays. The hum of the engines fluctuates, their steady drone interrupted by ominous sputters. Flight attendants rush to calm the growing panic among the passengers. "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated and fasten your seatbelts," a calm but firm voice announces over the intercom. But behind closed doors, the flight crew is now staring at a cockpit panel that is beginning to light up with warning indicators. Without warning, engine number 4 surges, sputters, and dies. Seconds later, engine number 2 follows. Then, in rapid succession, engine number 3, and finally, engine number 1 shut down. In the span of moments, the massive 747 turns into a glider. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a small problem." Captain Moody's voice comes over the intercom, remarkably calm. But inside the cockpit, the tension is palpable. This is a nightmare no pilot ever wants to face. A shocked silence falls over the cabin. Passengers stare wide-eyed at one another, processing the captain's words. "A small problem? a businessman murmurs incredulously. A flight attendant grips the back of a seat, her knuckles white. In the cockpit, the pilots are working furiously, trying to restart the engines. Check fuel flow, Moody instructs. Fuel is fine, sir. The engines should be running, comes the bewildered reply. But they aren't. The volcanic ash has clogged them beyond function, suffocating the aircraft's lifeline. The realization dawns quickly. Without engines, they are now in an uncontrolled descent. Jakarta is their best bet for an emergency landing. But do they have enough altitude to reach it? Falling at nearly 2,000 feet per minute, the crew scrambles to restart the engines. They run through the checklist, trying every procedure they've ever trained for, but nothing works. Outside, streaks of eerie blue light, caused by static electricity interacting with the volcanic ash, trace the plane's wings, making the aircraft look almost supernatural. The passengers grip their armrests, some whispering prayers, others frozen in shock. A veteran pilot, flying as a passenger that night, glances out the window. The eerie glow makes his stomach churn. He's seen strange things in his career, but nothing like this. "We're gliding," he murmurs to his seatmate. "What do you mean? The engines? They're out, all of them." In the cockpit, Captain Moody and his crew work with military precision. "We'll try a windmill restart," he decides, instructing his co-pilot to increase their dive slightly, hoping to generate enough airflow to turn the engines. The fate of everyone aboard depends on whether or not those engines can roar back to life. And so on, with each scene expanded to provide in-depth details, character reactions, and suspenseful moments. Falling at nearly 2,000 feet per minute, the crew scrambles to restart the engines. They run through the checklist, trying every procedure they've ever trained for. But nothing works. Outside, streaks of eerie blue light, caused by static electricity interacting with the volcanic ash, trace the plane's wings, making the aircraft look almost supernatural. The passengers grip their armrests, some whispering prayers, others frozen in shock. The cockpit is a flurry of activity as the pilots attempt to control their descent. Without engines, the massive 747 is at the mercy of gravity. Moody grips the yoke, keeping the aircraft level as they glide toward Jakarta. The altitude meter continues to drop. The crew knows that if they can't restart the engine soon, the ocean will be their only landing option. In the cabin, passengers are gripped by fear. Some close their eyes, silently praying. Others hold hands, finding comfort in unity. A few are in tears, imagining the worst. Flight attendants move through the aisles, offering words of reassurance despite their own fear. At 12,000 feet, an engine suddenly coughs to life. A wave of hope washes over the cockpit. Then another engine roars back. Within moments, all 4 engines are running again. The crew is stunned but focused. This is their chance to regain control and land safely. Visibility is low due to the ash, making the approach to Jakarta treacherous. Moody and his crew rely on instruments, skill, and sheer determination. The airport's lights appear in the distance, guiding them toward safety. The wheels touch the runway with a jolt. The aircraft skids but ultimately comes to a stop. A moment of silence, then applause erupts in the cabin. British Airways Flight 9 has survived the impossible. For those on board, it's a second chance at life, and for the aviation industry, a lesson that will forever change how they navigate the unseen dangers of the sky.